Hello everyone. In this session, we will see the basics of Python. We will understand what is a variable and how to assign a value to a variable. My name. Okay, this is a variable, and I want to store some value into it. It can be right Steve and my age. Let's say maybe 35. What does this mean? Right? Each variable represents a memory location, a place in your memory where the respective data is stored. So here the value is Steve. The value Steve is stored with the location called my name, right? It's in the name my name. So this is the variable and this is the value stored for this variable. And now if you see, we have different types of variables, right? If you have come from different backgrounds like Java or any other languages, there is something called variable declaration. You need to tell to the program, right, what type of variable it is. Like for example, you may want to see in other languages, right? String, typically in Java, right? String my name, right? Before you can assign something to it. This is in Java, but in Python there is no such thing called variable declaration. You don't have to declare the variables. You can directly store the value into your variables and you can use it wherever you want. So for example, if I say print, right, as you have seen in the previous session, print is used to print something. So earlier we printed hello world, which is basically some sentence we have directly printed in the console, right? Now if I want to print this value present in this word my name, the variable my name, I can directly print it. All right, now if I want to run this, if I go and click on the run button, right, I see hello world, which is printed from here, and Steve, which is the my name here. Okay, so now if I have one more my name here, right, and I'm changing it to Kumar, and if I print it again, all right, you will see first when this print was encountered, it has printed Steve, and then when it has encountered this my name, right, when it executed this print statement, it has got Kumar. So the same variable but with two different values. All right, so the same variable name can be used to store different values at different times. And if you see, this is a string variable, right, meaning we can store alphabets and numbers, combination of alphanumeric characters, special characters, everything into it, right? I can have like Kumar and hyphen 123 space whatever, right? I can store it into the string, and when I run it, it will print it, right? Because it's a string. In a string variable, I can store alphabets, numbers, special characters, everything. All right, but if you see age, I have put some numerical value, meaning this is a integer, right? There are no decimals. It can be minus, or it can be a negative number, or it can be a positive number, but it's an integer. It's a whole number, right? It's an integer. Gender, again, it's a string, right? And height contains decimal value, so this can be a decimal or float, right? When we say decimal and float are more or less the same, except that in decimal you can define the precision, meaning how many decimal points are after first digit, right? When you can define, like you can convert it to a specific from one format to another format, which you will understand in later sessions, right? You can specify the precisions, whereas in float there is no such thing. It will hold any number of digits that we pass, but beyond some limits it will convert it into an exponential form, like you would have seen in calculators and in Excel spreadsheets, right? Beyond some digits it will show like plus e, something like that. And if you see this variable, it holds something called true or false. It's not a number, and it doesn't have this single quotes as well, right? Single quotes or double quotes. Even string can be present within double quotes. Okay, so double quotes or single quotes, both are valid for string. Whereas for numbers there is no quotes. Whenever you put something within quotes, it's a string, right? But here numbers are given without any quotations. But this one is a word, true, but it's not present within a code, right? And it's not a number as well. This is called Boolean, right? It can be a true or false. It's called Boolean, right? So you can store true or false within this. So these are like for few major types of variables, right? Like a string, number, maybe an integer, right? And a floating point number or a decimal, and a Boolean. There are few other types of variables, okay? Like there is something called list and meaning dictionary, and tuple, right? Which we will see shortly. But these are some basic variables that we deal with in Python. All right, let me run it again and show you that. So now if I want to debug this program and see what is present, or let's say if there is some error over here, like for example I have given instead of my name I have given this as my name underscore 1, okay, it throws this error. And if I run this, it's going to throw some error, right? It tells this is wrong. All right, so and it says, did you mean my name, right? Meaning I have an issue which I need to fix, right? Either I need to rename this to my name 1, or I have to change this to my name. Okay, so it will easily, you can know like if you are making some mistakes where you need to fix. If you click on this link also, wherever your cursor is, if you click on this link, it will directly take you to the error wherever you are. Okay, so it's very smart. It will tell you where the error is, and it will even suggest what you may have to do, right, in case of that error. So these are all part of the latest Python, right, 3.11. Earlier versions may not have these features. So now if I want to debug this, right, let's say this is a very large program with thousands of lines, right, and you want to debug your program. So you can set breakpoints just by clicking like this. All right, or you can remove the breakpoint. If you click it again, it will be gone. But what is a breakpoint? Breakpoint is like when you run with breakpoints, you won't find any difference. It will just run as it is, as you saw just now, right? But you can debug. There is another thing called debugging in programming. When you click on debug, the program will come and it will pause in the breakpoints, and you can see what is going on, what is coming in this value, and what is coming here, what is coming here. So you can debug stuff. Okay, for example, if I do a debugging here, it will come and it stopped here. You see, it's in blue, it stopped here. And in the bottom pane, it's in the debugger mode, right? Earlier we were in the run tab, but now in the debug tab. In the debug tab, it is stopped in this line number 9, and it shows the values, right? Height, alive, gender, my age, my name. These are the variables, right? So for these are the variables available right now, and these are the values. And it also shows you the data type. Height is a float, which as I was mentioning. Alive is Boolean. Gender is string. My age is integer. My name is string. It tells you the data types as well. So it shows you at runtime what is going on within this, right? So now if I want to go to the next line, and if I keep my mouse cursor over my name, there also it will show you what is the name stored in that variable when this is running, right? Now if I want to go to the next line, I can press F8 on my keyboard. It will go to the next line. As of now, my name is Steve, right? You can see it here, and when you keep your mouse cursor here also you can see that. But the moment I cross this line, like currently where we are assigning my name with a different value, right, it will immediately change. My name here, you see, it's showing as Kumar -123 blah blah blah, right? And if you keep your mouse cursor over here, there also you will see that, and here also you can see multiple places. Wherever you see the variable, you will be able to see the value changed. But now the moment when I press F8, it's going to blow the error. Okay, right? My name one is not defined. It throws the exception. So you know you need to go and fix it. Okay, so this is called debugging. But if you want to turn off some of these breakpoints, there are, like, you may have a large program, right, and you may have hundreds of breakpoints. So when you are dealing with debugging, when you want to manage the breakpoints, it will be a very tedious process. Or what you can do is, like, you can, in the debug pane, you have these two circles, right, two red circles. Just click on it, it will show you all your breakpoints. You can just click on them, right? You can turn off some of the breakpoints, whichever you don't want, right? And you will see this as a circle, not as a full full shape. So yeah, so just see. And if I turn off some breakpoint, the code won't stop there. So now if I run this again, code stopped here. Now if I press F9, it will directly go to the next breakpoint, and it did not even stop in my name because I have turned off this breakpoint. But if I want to turn it on again during runtime, I can turn it on. So depending on where I want my code to stop, I can choose. Alright. If I want to stop, turn off all the breakpoints, basically mute all breakpoints, you can click on the last icon here and it will mute them, right? And when you want to unmute them, you can unmute them, right? So when you mute them, the program won't stop anywhere, right? If I click on here, it will behave like running it. It won't work like debugging. It will behave like running a pure execution. And you can, during execution, you can stop also. There's a stop option. So these are the basic options for running and debugging your programs. Now let's look at a couple of other variables, right? List, dict, and tuple. So what are they, right? So the one of these variables, whatever you see here, they hold one value, like Steve, age is 35, gender is male, height is 5.25, alive is true. So these variables hold just one value in them. Each value holds one value in them. But what if I want to store multiple values in a variable? All right. So for example, if I want to store my phone numbers, and let's say I have multiple phone numbers, let's say 111, 222, 333, and I have multiple phone numbers. Okay, I'll put a comma, 222, 333, 444. Okay, but if you see, I have put them within square brackets. When you put it within square brackets, it means this is a list. In other languages, this could be called as an array or as an array list, but in Python it's simply called as list, right? And the main beauty about list here is you can store anything into it. Like you can store a number, or you can store a string as well. For example, something like this: 111, 444, 555. Like, and if you want to put some country code, for example, +1 or something like this, right? So basically you can store as a number, or you can store a string, anything. Basically this list can hold anything. It can even hold another list into it, right? So lists are variables which can hold multiple values in them. Now, how to get the values, right? Like now I'm printing my name and it's printing fine, right? But if I want to print my phone numbers, okay, how will it print? If I print it now, it's going to print it like this, just like how I have stored it. It's going to print it like this. But what if I want to take my second phone number here, right? Not the first one, but the second one. All right, I just have to use these square brackets again, and I have to tell the position or index of that particular value which I want to take. And in Python, and even in every language, the index starts from 0. So this is a 0th position, this is first position, and this is second position. So basically you have 0, 1, 2. And if you want to take the second position value, you need to say 1 here. And when I print this, when I run this, it's going to print the number 222, 333, and 444, right? Which is the second item in this list, which is identified by the index, which is 0 here, this is 1, and this is 2. All right. If I put 2 here, it's going to return the last item. Okay. You see this? So you can easily access any item present in the list based on its index. But what if I don't know, right, how many items are present, or if I want to get the last item of this list, okay, and I don't know how many items will be there in this list, I can simply put -1. When I put -1, it will take the last item from the list and it will print it, right? Irrespective of the list size, it will always take the last item from the list and it will print it. If I put -2, it's going to take this item, which is from the reverse, right? It's going to print it. So you can directly take a value. When you give a positive number from starting from 0, it's going to get you the items from the front. Or if you put a negative value starting from -1, it's going to return you the items from the reverse, from the back. Okay, so you can take any value from the list, from the front or from the back. Okay, that's the benefit of having a list. But what if I want to get multiple items from this list? For example, the second item and the third item. Okay, I just have to say 1, okay, which is the second item, colon 3. But if you remember, the index is starting from 0, right? So 0, 1, 2, right? We have only 0, 1, 2. But why are we giving like 1, colon 3? It's because the last number that we are giving here, it is excluded, it is not included, right? So this is called a slicing. So you are going to take the numbers, the items present from here before this one, before 3. So it will take only second and this one, right? Let me run this and see what it is returning. You see this? It has returned the second item in the list, which is in the first position, index 1, and it has to go till this item, right? So if I have one more item here, for example, ABC, and if I run it, right, zero, 1, 2, 3, it has returned this item and ABC, right? It has excluded the item which is present in the third index. If I change it to 4, it will return the next item as well. Okay, so you can slice the items depending on where you want to get or what items you want to get from the list. So this is called the slicing of items. Okay, so hope you are clear about what is a list and how you can get the values from a list. Okay, but now if I want to add a new phone number to this list, I already have a list, I have some numbers in it or some phone numbers in it, and if I want to add a new phone number, what should I do? Very simple. You just have to say phone numbers dot append, and you can give your anything, a string or a number, anything that you want to append to the list, right? And if I want to add one more, right, and you see this, I'm printing the whole list. So you have these 3 phone numbers which we have given in this list, and I am appending 2 more phone numbers to the same list. So now the list has 5 items in it. Alright, what if I want to concatenate or join, right, 2 lists? For example, let's say I have my mobile numbers. Let's say this is one more list with some numbers in it. Alright, and I want to combine these 2 lists. Okay, all I have to do is just take this, right, and I have 2 ways to do it. Okay, so I can say plus equal to mobile numbers, which has added all the numbers to the same list, or I can say phone numbers equal to phone numbers plus, meaning I'm going to combine these 2 together and I'm going to store it in the phone numbers, or I can give a new variable name also. Both are okay, right? So if I simply give it like this, it's going to update the phone numbers list. But if I change it to phone numbers underscore 1, oops, okay, yeah, if I change it to phone numbers underscore 1, and let me print phone numbers underscore 1 as well. Now if you see, phone numbers has the 3 phone numbers what we had originally and these 2 phone numbers that we have added. Now phone numbers 1 has this list of phone numbers whatever we have added plus the mobile numbers what we have. So basically this original list is not affected by it. Okay, so you have it here. So you can basically add one item or you can add multiple items to the phone number list. What if I want to update a phone number which is already present, like here, right? I have a phone number here and I want to update it. All right, now how do I do that? As I was mentioning in the beginning, you can access the phone numbers or you can access the items present in a list using their index, the position. Okay, so now if I want to change the phone number which is present in the first position, I can directly assign it a new value, like let's say 222 444 22, something like that. Now if I run it, you see this, you have a new value here. This value is no longer present, it's changed. Okay, so like this, you can create lists, you can work with them, you can add new values into it, or you can get value from a list, or you can update a value present in a list, or you can update the you can join two lists as well. Let's now look at the next data type, dictionaries. Right, so dictionaries is also one of the most popular data types used for different activities, and let's look at what it is. So one thing that you have understood from lists and integers and strings is these are variables where you can store the data, and the difference is like in integers and strings you can store one value in a variable, whereas in a list it can hold multiple values which you can get based on their index basically. So if you want to get the phone numbers, you need to use their index to get them out, right? And but now what if I want to store some data with some identifiers, or also known as keys? So if I want to store my address, and this address, let's say I have a home address and I have an office address. Okay, so I can either store it like home address equal to, right, 123 Rose Street, right, NY, and office address as 123 Jasmine Street in NY. I can do it like this, or I can create a dictionary called address. But how to do that, right? Lists have declared with square brackets. So now I can use the parentheses to create a dictionary. So now address is a dictionary. And how to store my home address and office address in the address dictionary? So as I was mentioning, to store anything in a dictionary you need a key. So a dictionary is basically key value pairs. So each data will have a key and a value. So every item will have a key and a value. So first I will have a key. So the key here is home. Now a value. But how to give the value here? You need to put a colon and the value. So let's say this value is this. Okay, and then I want to put my next office address. How do I do that? Put a comma and give the next key, which is, let's say, office, and the address in it. All right. Now I want to print address. Let me run it. Okay, you see the address. But if you see, it is printing the previous stuff as well, whatever we have done before, which we don't want, right? We have seen what to do, but I don't want to delete this either. What I can do is I can simply select these and comment them out by pressing Ctrl and slash. It will comment them out. Or you can put hash in the front, it will comment them out. So these are called comments, right? You can use comments to define your code for a better readability, to make others understand it and work on top of it, right? Or to keep track of your changes. That's the purpose of having comments. So now if I print it, those commented out lines won't get executed. Alright, and you see the address only is printed, and the address is printed as we have given it here, but the only difference is we have used double quotes, but it prints with single quotes. Okay, we will come to that little later. But now if I want to get the home address alone or the office address alone, how do I get it, right? So to get items from the list, we use the list index to get specific items. But here in the dictionaries, we don't use indexes. We cannot get the items by indexes. We will be using the keys, but using the same notation. We are going to use square brackets. Within square brackets, I'm going to put a double quotes, and I'm going to give the key, which is home. If I run this, it's going to give me the home address. Let me put one more print statement. I'm just using Control D, which will be duplicating the previous line, just a shortcut, right? And I'm copying office. I'm going to paste it over here. Now when I run it, you will see Rose Street NY and Jasmine Street NY, my home address and office address. So basically you have the data with keys and values, and you can get the values using their keys. So here you don't have to know the indexes or the positions of that particular value where it is present, but you should know the key. Without knowing the key, you may not be able to get the value unless you have to loop through each item. That is where looping or iterative programming comes in, right? Iterations or loops that we will see little later. But to get the data from the dictionary, you can use the key. Now if I want to add a new address, alright, so let's say address, and if I want to add my maybe school address, okay, so I can say school, and I would be using single quotes and double quotes. We can use whatever, right? Both it's a string. I want to use my school address. So just like how you stored the values in list using the indexes, you can directly store values in the dictionary using keys, right, in the same notation. And I can pass my school address over here, 678, right, Littlewoods NY. So now let me run this. Okay, so I'm not printing it, so it's not showing it up. So let me print my school address as well. So when I print my school address as well, it is going to print it out here. So I have my home address, office address, and school address, all three of them printed out here. So now if I want to change some of the address, one of the addresses that I have given here, for example, if I want to change my office address here, right, I can change it. If I want to change it to 666, right, I'll say British Woods, and let me run it. It's changed, right? Just like how you can change the values or items present in the list using their indexes, you can change the values present in the dictionary using their keys. So to get a value from a dictionary, you need to use the keys, or to put something into the dictionary, you need to use keys and the values, right? And if you want to update something, you can still use the keys. So that's how you can create dictionaries, put some items into it, or get some items from it. And both dictionaries and lists provide you ways to remove items from them as well. So for example, if I want to delete the phone numbers present in the list, which we have discussed earlier, right? I can clear the complete list by simply saying mobile numbers dot clear. It will directly clear it and it will create an empty list. Or if I want to remove one particular item, okay, I can choose to use remove, and I need to specify which item I want to remove. So I need to say this. I need to provide the specific item which I want to remove. Okay, so if I print mobile numbers and comment this line and run this, you will see this, right? In the mobile numbers, this item is removed, so it's printing only this item. So I can clear the complete mobile numbers, or I can remove only one particular mobile number and I can print it. So this is how you can remove or you can clear the complete list. But if I want to simply remove the last item from the list, I can use pop. When you do a pop, it will remove the last item by default. Okay, so it has removed the last item. The list contains only the first item over here. But if I want to pop a specific index, that also I can do. The difference between remove and pop is that not just pop only removes the last item, but it returns it if you want to pop item. Okay, and if you print this one out, right, let me print the mobile numbers in the popped item. You will see this item which is popped out, right? It's like you take the last item from the list and you want to print it or use it or do something with it. The same functions are present for dictionaries as well, right? So if I want to clear or do something, delete something, you can do it. So if I want to clear this, I can clear the dictionary. It will completely remove all the items present in the dictionary. But I may not have a remove. I don't have a remove in this. Instead, I need to use pop. Okay, and I need to give a key. All right. So now when I try to run this, it will say key error, home is not present. But earlier it printed, here it has printed, but here it is not there because home is no longer present in the address. We have popped it, meaning we have removed it. Alright, so that's how the pop operation works. So hope you have got a good understanding of lists and dictionaries and the difference between lists and dictionaries and different variable types. Yeah. Let's now look at some of the basic operations that we can do with numbers and strings, because so far we got introduced to strings and numbers, but we didn't go into the details of what are the different operations that we can do on them, right? So now let's look at them as well. So for that I will create a new Python program. I will just right click on the folder, I'm clicking new, and I will choose Python file. And I can name it as I want, right? So I will say numbers operations. So now I want to work with numbers. I want to see different kinds of operations. What I want to do, what are the basic operations that will generally work on numbers? Add, subtract, multiply, divisions, right? These are some stuff. And we may want to do a modulus, right? Maybe basically the remainder of two numbers. And how do we do them? So let's say I have a variable called a with 10 and b equal to 20, and I want to add them, right? So c equal to a plus b. Print c. That's so simple, right? So you got two numbers, add them, print them. That's simple, pretty simple. Now if I want to run this, I can right click and choose run, or I need to go over here. I need to change the run configuration and run this. If I directly run this, you see this, it has selected a different program. So it's going to run the hello world program again. So either I have to right click here and run it, or I need to right click here, right click on the numbers operations and run it. And it gives me 30, the result as 30. So I have got two numbers, I've added them up and printed. If I want to subtract them, right? So for example, if I want to subtract 5 from C, so I can say C minus 5 and I can print D. And what you will get is 25. So basically 10 plus 20 minus 5. It's giving me 25. Now if I want to multiply it by 4, alright, so I will say E equal to D asterisk 4, because multiplications in every language it's star you have to use, which is asterisk 4. You will get 100. Can I put all of them together in one single line? Yeah, you can do that. So I can say A plus B minus 5 into 4. And let me print C. Will I get the same result as 100? Think about it. Right? You won't. You will get 10. Why is that? It's the same mathematical principle, right? When you have a multiplication, that takes the priority over everything else. Okay? So 5 into 4, which is 20, and A plus B is 30. So 30 minus 20, you get only 10. Okay? So that is the reason. It doesn't do it in the sequence like left to right. It first does the multiplication and then it does the operation here. So A plus B is like 30 minus 5 into 4 is like 20. You are getting the answer as 10. But if I put them within brackets, okay, then the result will be coming as what we were expecting, 100. And if I want to divide it by, let's say, 2, I can do that. You get 50. Alright. So now if I want to find the modulus, right, basically the remainder, when I divide 50 by 5, for example, I want to see the remainder, right? How do I do that? I can say D equal to C percentage 5. Okay. And let me print D. You see, remainder is 0, right? It's divisible, right? So it's 0. Let me put 4 and see what comes up. See, it's coming as 2. Alright, because 50, when you divide it by 4, you get 48 is the answer, right? So that 48 and the remainder you have is 2. The 2 is getting printed here. So these are some of the numerical calculations and numbers you can do. And Python is extensively used for mathematical computations. There are very, very powerful libraries like NumPy, SciPy. There are so many powerful libraries are there, and Python is extensively used for statistical applications, very, very advanced level statistical applications and analytics and stuff like that, right? So what we are just showing is just very basic stuff, very easy to understand stuff, that's all. But when you learn more and more about this, you will be getting to know like all the advanced level concepts for mathematical computations in Python. But let's look at string operations. Okay, so I will create a new file for string operations. String ops. Okay, so now let me copy one of the strings that we have here, maybe the address. Okay, so there are so many string operations that we can do, just like how we can slice the list, right? When you say slicing a list, you were able to get the first item or second item. You can also do similar stuff here. So if I say home address of 0, right, it will give me the first character. Let me print it. I'm sorry. Let me run this one. You see, yeah, when you run this, I get 1 because 1 is the first character here. If I say, for example, 5, I get O. If I put 4, I'm going to get R. So basically, it's going to get the values from this list, right? I'm sorry, from the string based on their position. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. In fourth position, I have R. It's returning that. So now, if I want to take from here 4, 5, 6, 7, I want to get these 4 values, okay? But as you remember, right? Let me run this, okay? If you see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But in the 7th position, whatever I have, it's not printed here because it excludes it. So let me put it as 8. It will print the word rose because it has directly taken from 4th character until 8th character. It gets me these 4 values: 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's how slicing works in string. Just like list, basically string is a list of characters, so in one sentence, right? But it treats it as list of multiple characters. That's all. The same -1 operator, everything works in the same way. Just like in list, you can take the last character by using the -1. Okay, it gives you the y. Alright, so that is one operation, like you can slice and dice the string. Now if I want to append something to this, right, I can do like home address. I can use a plus, put a double quotes, comma, USA, right? One second, sorry, let me remove these square brackets. We run it again. You see, USA is got concatenated to the original address. That's how we can create a string, and we can append something to the string, and we can get some positions or get some characters from a string. But one thing, if you remember, in the list you are able to change anything in a particular position, right? Can I do that here as well? Let's see. If I say home address of 5, right, it gave me the 5th character, meaning the R, right? That's what we saw here. That's what we saw earlier, right? I'm sorry, O here, right? Let me put 4. Yeah, so R will come up. Can I change this R to lowercase letter, right? Can I do that? Let me see. What do you think? Will it work? It won't. It will throw an error. Just because string does not support item assignment in its particular position. You can only take the values by its index, right? You can take alphabets or specific characters from a particular index, but you cannot directly change the values in that particular position directly by using their indexes, like how we do in list. Okay, that's something that you should keep in mind. But if I want to directly convert this whole home address into uppercase, I can do that. I can simply type upper. It will print the address in uppercase, or I can say lower. Okay, it will convert it to lowercase. Or if I want to capitalize, which will just change the first alphabet to capital. Okay, right now I don't have anything, so it's just a number here, so you don't see any difference. But what if I have some blank spaces, right, before and after? Like it starts with a blank space here and it ends with a blank space here, which I don't want, right? I can use strip. When I say strip, it will automatically remove the blank spaces here. There is no blank space. All right. In case if I have a star, the leading and trailing stars, asterisk basically, and I want to delete that asterisk, right, I can give it. It will remove it. Right, it has removed that leading asterisk from here. But if you see, after ny, it is not removed, it is still present. Why is that? It's because when you say strip, it's going to remove only the leading and trailing asterisks or characters, right? Even blank spaces or anything. It doesn't remove something in the middle, right? Because now we have appended the home address with USA. Now home address contains 123 Rose Street, NY, USA. So this is the whole string it has, right? In this whole string, it will remove the characters only in the beginning and at the end, right, when you are using a strip operation. But if I want to remove the asterisk anywhere, wherever it is present, right, if I want to remove anywhere, wherever it is present, I can use a replace operation. And I can say replace with it, okay, and I can run it again. It has removed all the asterisks. All right. So you have learned about how to play with strings, right? You can replace some characters or strip some characters, or you can take characters from a specific position. You can concatenate two strings. So there are a lot more that you can do with strings, right, which you will learn as you progress. All right. So now let's even look at some more string functions which we might use. For example, let's say if I want to split a string, right, using this comma, split the home address by comma, and I want to see what I'm going to get. Split, right, comma. It's going to basically split the string as this is the first item, this is the second item, and this will be a third item. It will be giving you a list of 3 items. You see, it is in square brackets. You have 3 items. First one is a string, second one is a string, and third one is a string. So you have a list of 3 items when you do a split operation, and you can give any character here. Right now we have given a comma, but it's an optional parameter. If you don't give anything, it will split it by default by blank space. If you see now, it has splitted this one single sentence, a full address, and you are getting each word present in it, right? So whenever you want to process some long sentence, you want to get the words from them, you can use the split function, which will give you the words present in the sentence. Now what we have done is the variable has a value assigned directly in the program, which is called hard coding, right? But in a typical scenario, in a real world programming, we will never do this. We will want to give the input from outside the program. Basically, when the program is running, the user has to provide this value, right? Not the code itself. So how to pass this value from the user, how to get this value from the user, right? All we have to do is just say input and a prompt. So this input function will display a question or a prompt to the user, and the user can provide his response. So now we are asking for the user to input a value. And what do you want the user to input? The user's home address, right? So you can say enter your home address. That's it. With this done, when the user when you run the program will ask for your home address, and the user can enter the home address, which it will then append with the country, and it will print the words in it. Let's run this and see how it works. Okay, so as expected, now the program is asking us to enter our home address. Now we can enter anything, right? So 356 Olympic Boulevard, Nashville. Alright, and it gives you the list of words present in the input. Alright, so that's very simple to get the home address or to get any input from the user instead of directly putting it inside the program. Now let's look at conditional execution. So what is conditional execution, right? So basically you want some part of the code to get executed only when certain condition is met, and some part of the code to get repeatedly executed, right, for n number of times, or for all the items present in your list, right, or till a certain condition is met. So this is called conditional execution, right? So let's see some examples of how to write conditional execution in Python. So let me create a new Python file. Conditional execution. Okay, so I'm going to take an input string, right? So my input string is input, enter the sentence. So I'm going to get the sentence from user, and then what I want is I want to split the words by blank space, and I want to find the longest word. Okay, so how do I do that? So first let me get the words from that input string. My input string dot split by blank space, or I can just give split, anything is fine. This will give me the words present in the sentence which I will be entering. Now I know the words, but which is the longest word and what is the length of it, right? How do I get it? So what I want is the longest word, which will be a string, and I want the maximum length, max length, right, which for now is 0. So let's say I'm going to get a longest word, and that length will be some number which I'm going to get. So for now I'm having an empty string as the longest word, and the length is 0. But now I have to loop through, or I have to go through each word present in the words, find the length of each word, and check whether that is the maximum length in that particular sentence. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write something called a for loop. For loop can repeat certain operation for a for a list of items, or for a defined number, set of numbers. So for example, right, so if I want to repeat some operation, let's say I in range of 1, 10, print I. When I do this, this will basically loop through the range of numbers and then print them. Okay, so if I simply comment these guys out and run this code, if you see, it has printed from the numbers, right? And as you remember, when we give the range in slicing, this is the maximum limit provided here is excluded. So if I want to get 10 numbers, I need to provide 11 here. Okay, right? So this is like repeating the print statement 10 times because I have given a range. Okay, now within this range of numbers, if I want to do something else like sum of these numbers, okay, how do I do that? Very simple. Like total equal to 0, I will say total equal to total plus the I value, and I will print total. So it will basically sum up from 1 to 10, which is 55, right? It has basically summed up 1 plus 2 plus 3, the cumulative total it's printing, right? Because this has got executed 10 times. So if I keep a breakpoint here and if I run it, let me unmute the breakpoint and let me run it again. Yeah, you see it has stopped here and I value is 1. If I press F8, now it goes back to the for again and it comes back inside. Now I is 2, now I is 3. So this is called looping. It loops within the same statements till we reach the 10 and then it will come out. Okay, so this is a for loop for a defined range of numbers. But if I want to do the same thing for a set of words which I'm going to get from the user, right, there I will be doing it in a slightly different way. I will use for word in words. So when it is looping through this list of words, it will get one word at a time. And if I want to print that word directly, I can do that. Okay, so now let me debug this, and it asks for enter the sentence. So let's enter some sentence. Python is simple to learn but very powerful. Okay, all right. So now when I have entered that string, Python is simple to learn but very powerful, it has got the words Python is simple. If you see, each of them has been broken down into separate words. Words is a list of 8 words. Okay, now when I loop through this, if you look at here, this for loop, first word it has got is Python, right? This word is Python, which is the first word. If I go to the next word, is simple. You see this word is changing, right? So for every loop it gets the next word. So when you loop through the list, you will get the items from the list and you can do something with it, like you can print it, or you can find the length of it, or you can store it in a database, or you can write it to a file. Whatever you want to do, you can do with that item. Okay, so let me mute the breakpoints and run this. Yeah, so that's what it has done. So now if I want to find the length of this word, because I need to check which is the longest word, right? So to find the longest word in the sense the number of characters present in the word, I need to find the length of that word. So first let me get the length of that word. So I will say word length equal to len of. Len is a function given by Python to find the length of a particular word or particular array, right? Meaning list. So I have got the word length. So now I need to check if the word length is higher than the max length which we already have. How to do that? I need to check some condition, right? If this is greater than this value, if word length is greater than maximum length. So for that, what I'm going to do is like write a if condition. If will check a particular condition is satisfied or not. The syntax goes something like this. If you give certain condition and a colon, and here you will write some code to be executed when the condition is true. You can have any number of lines of code, okay, multiple lines of code there, and you can have elif some other condition, meaning if this condition is not satisfied, you want to check for some other condition, maybe another condition. Okay, like let's say if 2 is if a is greater than 5 and lesser than 10, what needs to be done? If a is greater than 20 and lesser than 30, what needs to be done? Like that, if you want to check for different conditions, you can use the if elif statements, some other code to be executed. Finally, you can have a else statement. If none of the above conditions are met, right? If none of the above conditions are met, this block will get executed. So whatever lines you are going to put in here, they will get executed. So the syntax is like if a condition, elif a condition, else. Now elif and else, this block is completely optional. You can just give only an if, but to use elif or else, you must give an if statement, right? If not, it doesn't make sense to have an elif or else. You can just give if and else alone, or you can just give if elif alone, or you can just give if alone, right? So now I want to check if word length is greater than max length. So it will check if this value of word length is greater than the value of max length. Initially the max length will be 0. So the first word in our sentence, it will take the length of that sentence, and that will be in there in the word length, right? So if the word length is greater than the max length, now I'm going to store the max length as word length, right? Because no longer the max length is the maximum value, right? Now the word length is greater than max length, so max length becomes word length. Okay, and my longest word is the current word at this point. All right, now I will print longest word in the sentence is plus longest word plus width length plus string of max length. Okay, so if you look at this, I'm doing something called string of. Why do I do that? Because when you concatenate a string with a string, you don't have to do anything, it can automatically join it. But here when you try to concatenate a string with a number, max length is a number, you need to convert that number into a string. So that's what we are doing here. In languages like Java and all, you don't have to do it, it will still concatenate, because Java has variable types declaration, right? But here in Python we don't. So it will ask us to explicitly convert that number into a string before we can concatenate it with another string. I mean, when I say concatenating, it's like basically stitching them together, joining them. So now what happens? Let's see. Let me debug this. Okay, so it says Python is simple to learn and it is very powerful. I am here to learn Python and improve my knowledge. All right, so let's put enter. Okay, so now you see you have the list of words here, because you have got the string and that got split into words, and you have got the words. So now let me go into the words. The first word is Python. The current max length is 0. The longest word is nothing. There is no longest word, right? And the current word is Python. It will check the word's length, which is 6. Length gives the number of characters, right? It is 6. So 6, whether it is greater than max length, which is 0, yes it is, right? So it will go into this block. So it stores the max length as 6 and the longest word as Python. So next word it goes is the word is, for that the word length is 2. 2 whether it is greater than max length. No, it is not. So it should not go into this block. It comes back to the loop. It didn't go in here. So this will repeat for everything. Okay. Until it finds another word which is longer than Python. Yeah, it has found powerful, which is longer. So now the longest word is powerful. Let's continue this, and we will see if there is any other word longer than powerful. Knowledge. Yep, knowledge is longer than powerful. All right. So now what we have is longest word in the sentence is knowledge with length 10. Right. So we have got the input from the user. We have broken down the sentence into words, and from the words we looped through the word, each word. We found the length of that word, and we checked whether that length is the maximum length, right? And if that is the maximum length, we are storing that length in a variable, and we are storing the word also, and we are printing it at the end. That's all. Let's just slightly modify this loop what we have written in a different approach. So now in the current approach what we have done, we have used a for loop to loop through each word present in the words list, right? So let me copy this down here, and I will comment this out. Okay, so now I'm going to write a different for loop. How I'm going to do that? I would say like for word index in range of 0, len of words. So what this is going to do is, range function will give me a range of numbers. Alright, so like we have seen before. So even if you want to check that, you can go to the Python console, list of range of 20. Yeah, so when I say list of range of 1, 20, you get the list of 20 numbers. Alright, so in this loop, now I'm going to get the word index, basically the position of that word in that words list. Words the list, right? You will have the positions starting from 0, 1, 2, 3 till the end of that list, right? So I'm going to loop through the index of that word. And how I'm going to do that? I'm going to get a range of numbers starting from 0 until the last index. Okay, so that will give me the word index. So now the word variable is no longer available, right? Earlier we had word here, but no longer it's available, so it's underlined in red. So now where is the word? How to get that word, right, from that list? Any idea? Alright, so if you remember, to get a particular item from the list, we can use the index of that item. So now from the words list, using the word index, we can get the word. Okay, so the same loop is now modified to use the index. So if I say I am learning a new language, okay, so it gives you that. And if you see learning and language, both of them have the same length, but it has already got the first word learning with length 8, so that it considers as the longest word. Okay, so the same logic but in a different loop. So the same problem can be solved with two different for loops, right? So now let's look at another looping mechanism. So as I mentioned, looping is like to repeat certain lines of code multiple times until a certain condition is met, right? Or some n number of times, or for each item, right? So now let me comment this out. I will take the word index equal to 0. Okay. Now I'm going to write another loop called while loop. While a certain condition is being met, this rest of the code will get executed. So while word index is lesser than the length of words. Okay. I want to repeat these lines, the same lines. But here the difference is for loop will automatically get the range of numbers. So word index will automatically get incremented, right? So every time when it goes inside the loop, you will get the word index incremented from 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Because it's a range of numbers. But here word index starts from 0, but it stays as 0. There is no incrementation happening here. So what will happen, right? When you run this code, it will run, the code will get executed infinitely. It will not come out of this loop. Okay, so you need to increment the word index. How do I do that? All I have to do is word index equal to word index plus 1, or I can say word index plus equal to 1. So here as well, the same block of code gets executed multiple times. So let's debug this, and it asks for a sentence. I am learning looping logic. And if you see the words, you got the words I am learning looping logic, and the word index is 0. So now word index, right, is whether it is lesser than the length of words. Yes, it is. So it will continue with the next one. It got the word I, and the word index is now incremented to 1. It will continue 2, 3, right? So it repeats the same piece of code until it finds all the words from that list. Okay. So you are able to get the longest word using 3 different looping mechanisms. First one we saw is using a for loop to iterate through each item present in a list. Second one we saw is loop through the same for loop but using the index of the items present in the list, and we got the range of numbers, right? And we got the index. The last one we have seen is a while loop. While a certain condition is met, you want to execute the piece of code inside that. So there are different applications where you may want to choose which loop you want to use in your code, right? And I hope this will help you understand how to write different loops and when you have to use if conditions, else conditions, right? Great. Let's understand how to handle errors and exceptions that will occur during runtime. Okay, so to look at that, let me create a new Python file, exception handling, and in the exception handling I'm going to show you how to deal with errors. Exception means errors. Okay, so now let's say I will have marks, and I have some marks here: 99, 98, 100, 78, 80. Okay, and I want to find the total of these marks. Okay, so there are different ways you can do that. There are built-in functions, but we are not going to use them at this point. So I will just write a simple for loop for mark in my marks. Okay, and I will have a total as well. Total plus equal to mark. Print total, and let me run this. You get the total, right? So, but what if there is a alphabet present in this? Let's say ABC. If I run this, it will throw an exception. Okay, so if you are getting some input, right, from the user, or if you are reading this input from some other file, right, you cannot guarantee the input present there, right? Like let's say if I am going to take this input from the user, input marks, or input enter the marks. Okay, and when the user enters that input, I will get it as a string, right? I'll be getting it as a string. So that I'm going to split it by comma. Okay, so I have the list of marks. So now when I get the list of marks from the string, it will be by default, it will be in string only. Mark will be a string only. So I need to convert it into an integer. So now let me run this. It asks for the marks. So let me say 100, 75, 80, 90. It says 345 because it was able to compute the total. But when I'm entering this, okay, let's say if I have given 100 and by mistake I entered something like 20B and then JBC and then I'm writing like 100. So now there are a couple of values present in my input which are not completely numbers. Okay, one has number and an alphabet, another one is a alphabet. So this cannot be considered as marks which I can use for computing the total. Okay, so when I enter this, it's going to throw it as an error, right? It cannot convert that into a number because I want to convert that into a number and it cannot do that, right? This purpose of this int function is to take an input string, convert it into a number, but here the string is not a valid number to be converted into an integer. Okay, 100 can be converted into an integer, but 20b is not, JBC is not, so it breaks, right? So how do I capture this? How do I handle this situation? That is where exception handling comes into picture, because what you're seeing is an exception. Okay, we need to handle the exception. How to do that? We will write a try, meaning we are asking Python to try this statement, and if some error comes, right, if some exception happens, you want to accept that exception. Okay, and you want to name it some exception, like you can see E, and you want to print some message, unable to read mark, right, that particular mark for total computation. Okay, and you want to include that error as well, error message. How do I include that error message? I just have to put string of this E. This E can be anything. You can give like ER or whatever, right? It's like a variable. Okay, so now let me put this in debug mode and I will show you what happens. Now it asks me to enter the marks, right? Let me give some valid numbers now. First 100 is here, so but the total is 0, so it's going to add 0 and 100. Total is also 100. Now the next mark is 20, next one is 30. It didn't even throw any exception, so it didn't go to the print statement at all. Everything is okay, right? So you got the final total. All right, but what if there is an exception happens? Okay, let me run this again and let me put some numbers here and some alphabets or something. and some numbers again, and some numbers and alphabets combined too. Okay, now when I run this, it comes into the loop. 200 is fine, 100 is fine. Okay, so this is where it's going to throw the exception, because mark is ZBV, which is not a valid number, so it cannot convert it into an integer. So when I run this, it's going to throw an exception, and it has gone to the exception catch statement. So we are going to accept that exception, and it says it's come over to this part of the code to print that, and it goes to the next one. So if you see the console, it has printed our message, unable to read ZBV, like whatever we have given here, that mark for total computation, error message, invalid literal for int with base 10 ZBV. It has printed that error message, but after printing that error message, it's going to proceed with the next mark, 728. Now it will throw this message for ABC 77, right? And it has come out successfully. So basically, it has thrown the error only for the invalid items where the exception occurred, and it has done the computation for rest of the valid numbers, and it's throwing you the total. Okay, so you got your program executed properly without aborting or without crashing, right? The exit code is 0, so the exit code, if it is 0, it has ran properly. But when an exception occurs, the exit code will not be 0, it will be like -1 or something, 1 or something. Okay, so to ensure like your program runs successfully, using try and except is very critical. And inside the try block, you can have any lines of code, you can put large lines of code, and in except you can do anything, like you can print a message, or you can do some cleanup operation, or if you want to do something else, you can do. Apart from try and except, on the same exception handling, you have a finally too. Okay, finally it's like after executing this operation for try and except, if you want to print something, okay, or if you want to do something here, you can do it. You can type, you can like whatever lines you want, right? So try and except, irrespective of whether the code runs successfully or there is some exception happens, after this whole thing is done, if you want to perform some operation, you can put it in the finally block. So that is about the exception handling in Python. And one more point, in the exceptions, whatever I have given like except exception is a very, it's a generic exception, it's a common exception for any kind of exception. But if you want to particularly handle some kind of exception, then there are a bunch of exceptions in Python. You can use like file exist error, right, or type error, right? Different kinds of exceptions are there. So if you want to handle different kinds of exceptions in different ways, you can include multiple except statements as well. File exist error as FE, and you can print something. Okay, so basically you can write multiple except statements with different logic or different lines that needs to be executed depending on the error that's going to occur in the try block, which is also very important in exception handling. So the next topic we are going to look at in this session is writing functions. So in any programming language, functions is very important, very critical, right? Why do we need functions? Functions will give you better reusability. You don't have to write the same lines of code in multiple Python scripts, right? In large projects, you will want to be very critical about how you are going to make your program reusable, right? You don't want your code to be redundant and duplicate lines, which will be very complex to maintain as well. All right, so how to write a function? So now we wrote a piece of code here, okay, so which basically can take some numbers and then can handle the exceptions as well. All right, and then it's going to handle that errors and it's going to print it. But what if this code is going to be called from some other Python programs, which we'll see in the next sessions, right? How we will be doing that. But or if you want to have the same functionality in other Python scripts as well, are you going to copy paste this whole thing, right? No, we don't, and we don't want that, right? So how do we do that? So we will bring in something called functions and how we are going to introduce the functions. So a function is defined as DEF, meaning I'm defining a function get marks, right? I'm going to get the marks from the user. I'm just naming that function and open and close curly brackets and a colon. Now, since Python is indent based, okay, Python is indent based, I'm going to put a tab here. In other languages like Java and all, you would have seen like the parenthesis, right? But here in Python, there is no such thing. It's only indent based. So now I have defined one function. So whenever I call this function, it's going to ask the user to input the marks. It's going to split it by comma and it's going to return the marks here. Okay. And I'm going to return the marks. What is this return statement? When this function is called, right? When this function is invoked, it executes this line marks and it has to do something with it, right? It has to use it or it has to give it back to the caller, whoever is calling this, it has to give it. So it is returning it, right? That's why we are using a return statement. And then we are going to have one more function called def calculate total. Okay. And I'm going to put this whole thing inside that and the total. I'm going to return the total because that is what the functionality of this function, where it is going to calculate the total and it's going to return it. But if you see, it's highlighting marks in red because my marks is only known to this function. The scope of this particular variable is only within this function. Outside this function, if I try to use my marks, it won't know that. Similarly, even if you see the print statement total, it doesn't know it because total is restricted to this function. It doesn't know what is the total outside that. So how do I give my marks to this total? All right, because total have to get the marks, right, to calculate it. So all we are going to put is like, just put it within these brackets. So we are basically making this my marks as a parameter, right? So it's like an argument, right? So argument, a parameter. So when you say the argument, right, this function can take marks as an input, right? This can take marks as an input and it can use that input. It can perform some operation and it can return one output. So this is the input to the function and total is the output from that function, from the calculate function. So now I have two functions and how am I going to use it? So first I want to get the input marks, right? So I'm going to use input marks, which is a variable, equals get marks. So this function is called, so it's simple as simply putting that function name into brackets. That's all. It's going to call this function which will return me my marks, and my marks, when it is returned by get marks, it will get stored in the input marks. Next, I need to give the input marks to calculate total, right? So let me see output total. It's a variable. In the output total, I want to store the total there, right? So how do I call the calculate total? Just like how we have called get marks, we are going to do the calculate total as well, right? But as soon as I put this, it asks me to enter my marks here, right? Because I need to pass marks, because my marks is the input. I need to pass some marks there. So where do I have marks? The marks is there in the input marks now. So I'm going to pass input marks here. So basically, get marks is going to get the marks from the user. It's going to be there in the input marks. Now input marks is passed on to calculate total. Calculate total function will calculate the total for the marks present in this list, and it's going to return the total, which gets stored in the output total. And I'm going to print the output total. Okay, so let's see how this code works. We will set some breakpoints, all right, and then we will debug this so that we better understand how this goes in. Okay, so first the breakpoint is, it comes over here. Why is that? We have functions before this line, right? We have this def function, this calculate total, but it didn't go inside that. It came directly here. Why? The lines present inside the function will get executed only when the function is called, right? If there are lines outside the function, they will get executed first. So for example, if I have something like a equal to 1, that will execute it first, right? So that's the order of Python. Python will execute the lines which are outside the function first in sequence, and wherever the function is called, there only it will get executed. If you don't call a function, it will never get executed. Okay, so first it goes into the get marks, and it will ask for the marks from the user here. Okay, so let's enter some marks, press enter. Okay, so now it's going to it has come down to the return statement. Now what is the return statement has? It has the my marks, which is a list. Okay, so now this my marks, it's returning to input marks. So the marks from my marks is now stored in the input marks. Now if you see, I don't have my marks anymore because I am outside that function. My marks is no longer visible. I have only the input marks here, and input marks holds that marks returned by getMarks function. Now that getMark function, whatever it has returned, it's now going to be the input for the next function, calculate total. All right, so we are going to send the marks to calculate total, and calculate total, once we are into calculate total, you see my marks, it is visible, it has the values. The input marks is no longer, because this is outside the function, right? It's no longer visible inside this, and you can see the marks available here in my marks. Okay, so I can loop through this. All right, and when I go to the next breakpoint, total is 500, and I'm going to return the total. So now the output total is there. So input marks is there, output total is there. I'm just going to print it out. Okay, so that's all, right? 500, we have got it. So now we have learned how to write functions. Okay, and if you look at these functions, there are two functions we have written. First one to get the marks from the user, second one to calculate the total of those marks. And the functions, right, they return the output as well. Each function returns its respective output, and the code present in the functions, they will get executed only when the function is called. Okay, and a function can have multiple input parameters, right? So here we are passing one, but you can have n number of parameters. You can have one more thing also, right? Maybe a class, right? Or my class or something, student class or my class. Okay, so now I am passing the second argument. So the function wants class as well for some reason, for some calculation, right? So it's asking for class as well. We are not using it inside the code, but for some reason, if I want to use it and I want to do something with it, right, I'm going to take one more parameter. But here I'm passing only one input marks. I'm not passing any class here. So what's going to happen? It's going to throw some error. So let me run this, right? If I type something, it says calculate total is missing one required positional argument, right? My class, because my class is a argument, right? It's a positional argument, meaning this is the first argument, this is the second argument. For the second argument, we did not pass any input, so it says it is missing something. So let's say if I give like let's say high school, high school, or let's say 7th grade. Then it will work, because, right, we are passing an input value now. We are not leaving it without passing anything. So now it has got my class here. Okay. All right. So these are basically positional arguments, and they are mandatory. We must pass some value. If we don't pass a value, it's going to break. Okay. But what if I want to keep some arguments optional, right? I want to pass a value only if I know something. If I don't want to pass, I want to have a way to make it optional. Okay, so how do I do that? So for example, let's say my school, and school, I am going to put an equal to, and I'm going to say none, meaning this is an optional argument. user can pass a value for this argument, like wherever you are calling it, you can pass a value for this argument, or you can leave it blank. If you don't pass it, it will automatically consider as none. None means it's nothing, there is nothing present. Okay, so it will not throw any error, it will still accept it. All right, so or you can even put some default school name. All right, so just for example, so if I go inside this and if you put a breakpoint, right, let me unmute the breakpoints and run it again. Yeah, so I'm going to enter some marks again, and when you go into this calculate total, you can see my school is IIT, my marks, and my class, right? So whatever, right? So it's basically the whatever input parameters that we are passing from calculate total, where it is called, that is also coming in, and the my school that we did not pass here, that is also available here. Okay, so if I want to override that value, the default value present for my school, I can pass my own value here. Okay, flower school. So now when I run this and enter some marks, my school is flower school because I'm passing a value. So if I send a value to this argument, right, this positional argument, my school, it is going to override the default value, though I have assigned something. If I don't pass anything, it's going to take IIT itself by default. Okay, that's how it works. Now, is this the only way to pass arguments? Right? No, there is one more way. So let me show you. Right? So here, let me remove this, all the values. If I type my underscore, it will show me that argument name, right? My marks, that's the argument name, and for this I can pass the value, and then I can put a comma, and if I want to directly pass a value for my school, right, I can say flower, and then if I want to pass a value for my class, right, so 10th grade, and it will still work. Right? How it does that? The difference here is, in the earlier function call, we were passing the input based on the positional parameters, like positional arguments. Input marks goes to my marks, 7th grade goes to my class, flower school goes to the third argument. Each of them is based on positional, right? But here we are telling about the argument name. It's like you are telling, like, for my marks use this, my school use this, my class use this. So you can change the order also. You can put my marks at the end also. This also will still work because Python knows which value is for what, right? So even if you change the order of the arguments, it will correctly map it to the correct variables. So if I go and debug this and enter some numbers here, and if you go inside, if you see my class is 10th grade, my marks is 100, 23, 75, my school is flower. So though my marks is the first argument in this function, and we are passing it as a third parameter here, it knows how to handle it, how to take it, right? So this is a named argument, and it has some optional parameters as well, which takes a default value. Okay, so I hope this gives you a clarity of how to define functions, how to pass parameters, and see you in the next session. Thanks for watching this video. To continue learning with us, like, share, and subscribe to our channel.